Hey guys, in this video you'll learn 10 tips to make your iPhone footage much more cinematic. But before we get into anything, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Okay, so the first 5 tips are going to be about what you can do when you're shooting, and the last 5 tips are going to be what you can do in post-production. Okay, so let's hop straight into it. Number 1 is going to be cinematic movement. Static shots just don't look as good as moving shots. If you're watching a movie, you'll see that most of the time the camera's moving. Imagine watching Mad Max, but the whole film was shot on a tripod. And you might be wondering, how do you get cinematic movement? For me, I use 2 things most of the time. One is a hoverboard, which is creative, and I'll get onto why I use that a bit later. And 2 being the DJI Osmo Mobile, and I'll also get onto what that does later. Moving on to step number 2 is stabilizing your footage. And no, I'm not just going to say use warp stabilizer. To make your movements look more natural, what you need to do is invest in some sort of stabilizer. As I said, I use the DJI Osmo Mobile, and these days you can get that used for around $100. And for what this does and how it transforms your footage, I think it's a massive bargain. As you can see here is me walking along the footpath handheld. And here's me walking along the path with the Osmo. Now here is me running handheld. And then with the Osmo. But you might be wondering, where does the hoverboard come in? And you might have picked this up already, but in the background while I was running with the Osmo, there was a lot of micro jitter. But using a hoverboard, you're just rolling along. Here are some clips where I used the Osmo and the hoverboard together. Okay, moving on to tip number 3, lighting. And to get cinematic lighting, it's not about how you color grade. Most of the time, it's about what time you choose to shoot. I would recommend dawn or dusk for the most cinematic look. As you're shooting on an iPhone, avoid shooting at night, as your iPhone doesn't have a big sensor and your footage will be quite noisy. Number 4, shoot at your iPhone's highest resolution. As I'm using an iPhone 8 Plus, it can shoot 4K 60 FPS. And if your phone can do that, I would highly recommend that. When you shoot 4K 60, it plays back in 24 frames per second, but you have that option of slowing it down in post. When you shoot 4K, you have the option to crop it in a bit, as it is so high quality. And also, this is a big one, don't get sucked into shooting 1080p and shooting at a really high frame rate. With the iPhone 8, a lot of people would just go for 1080p and 240 FPS, as some people say that the higher the frame rate, the more cinematic. But if you want to improve your cinematography, make sure to avoid doing that. Number 5 is using Filmic Pro. I'm not specifically saying that you need to use Filmic Pro, just avoid using the generic camera app. In Filmic, you have complete control over your settings and what resolution, frame rate, quality, etc. Filmic also costs a little bit now, but I think it's totally worth it. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I might soon do a tutorial on how to use it. Before we get onto the post-production tips, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And if you learned something already, make sure to hit the like button. Okay, number 6 is color grading. In my opinion, this is one of the most important. A clip without color grading just looks really unprofessional. To color grade my footage, I use Lumetri Color inside of Premiere Pro. And also, just another tip, you want to put Lumetri onto an adjustment layer so you have control over its strength. Number 7, adding anamorphic bars. And you might be asking, what are anamorphic bars? They're actually really simple. All they are 2 black bars at the top and bottom of your footage. And if you've never heard of them, that probably sounds really weird. But here's some examples with and without them. Number 8. Adding music. Now this doesn't seem too important, but it actually makes a huge difference. And also, editing your clips to the beat gives it a nice flow. Number 9. Only use basic transitions. A lot of people get sucked into using these really complex transitions. In my opinion, it takes away from the smooth motion of a video. So I would simply only use a fade in, fade out transition, or just none at all. Number 10. Setting your timeline to 23.976 frames per second. Now this one's pretty simple, but not a lot of people know what I mean. In Premiere, what you want to do is go to Sequence Settings, and then go down to Frame Rate and select 23.976. This gives your videos a much more natural look without looking too smooth and fake. Not a lot of people notice the difference, but if you watched a movie in 60 frames per second, it would look super weird. Okay, so as a quick summary of what you need to do, you add cinematic movement, stabilize your footage, you need to have good lighting, shoot in the highest resolution, use Filmic Pro or any other app that has a lot of control, color grading, adding anamorphic bars, adding music, only using basic transitions, and setting your timeline to 23.976 frames per second. And just to give you an idea of what results you can get, here's a cinematic sequence I created only using a phone. Thanks for watching this video. Well done if you made it to this part. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more content coming out very soon.